And to be quite honest with you, I'm disgusted. I'm disgusted with Sue Bird. People stick around and want to watch the others. A rising tide lifts all boats, which is what we were saying, both Shannon Sharp and myself, when we addressed that issue. Why would you say a quote like that? We work for ESPN, so I'm supposed to turn a blind eye and a deaf ear to the facts?
That wasn't just an argument. That was the sound of a carefully constructed mask slipping off. It's the story they don't want you to know. For months, WNBA legend Sue Bird was celebrated as an ambassador, a voice of reason. But in one explosive on-air moment, her attack on Stephen A. Smith for daring to speak the truth about Caitlin Clark revealed something much darker festering just beneath the surface. This wasn't about protecting the league, it was about protecting a legacy. It was the moment a legend's deep-seated jealousy was exposed for the entire world to see. Today, we're peeling back the layers of polite PR to reveal the uncomfortable truth. How Sue Bird, the ultimate WNBA insider, went from Caitlin Clark's biggest cheerleader to the leader of a bitter resistance, betraying the league's future in a desperate attempt to cling to its past. To understand the depth of this betrayal, you have to understand who Sue Bird was before this moment. She wasn't just a player. She was an icon, a champion, a voice whose opinion carried immense weight. And not long ago, that voice was one of the loudest in the choir singing Caitlin Clark's praises. Before Clark ever stepped onto a WNBA court, Bird celebrated her generational talent, publicly acknowledging that her star power was a gift to the entire league. She understood the concept of a rising tide lifts all boats, a phrase she and others used to describe the incoming rookie phenomenon. So what changed? The tide came in, and it was a tidal wave. The reality of the Caitlin Clark effect was more massive, more immediate, and more disruptive than anyone, especially the league's old guard, could have ever imagined. It wasn't just an increase, it was a complete statistical rewriting of the league's history. Clark's regular season games were averaging nearly 1.6 million viewers, a staggering 240% increase from the year before. For context, some of her games were drawing more viewers than primetime MLB and NHL matchups. Arenas across the country were selling out. The Indiana Fever saw their attendance jump by over 13,000 fans per game. One player, in a matter of weeks, accounted for 33.5% of the WNBA's total attendance for the entire season. She wasn't just lifting a boat, she was the entire
Caitlin Clark effect on all of basketball, and especially on women's basketball ratings. Kudos to her. She has elevated an entire sport.
She elevated an entire sport, and for a league that had fought for every scrap of attention for over 2 decades, this should have been a moment of universal celebration. Instead, for some, it became a threat. And that's when the cracks in the welcome facade began to show. The resistance wasn't a secret. It was a calculated public campaign that started before Clark even played a single professional game. It began with a chilling public warning from Diana Taurasi, another of the league's most revered players. "Reality is coming," she said. While the league's PR machine tried to frame it as sage advice, fans and analysts heard it for what it was, a threat. It was a promise that the professional ranks would humble the college star, that the hype meant nothing here. Then came the attempts to diminish her accomplishments. Legend Cheryl Swoops publicly questioned Clark's college records with statements that were not just opinions, but factually incorrect lies. Swoops falsely claimed Clark played 5 college seasons instead of 4 and took 40 shots a game, when the real number was a full 17 shots lower at 22.7. This wasn't an honest mistake, it was a targeted effort to tear down her credibility. The resistance quickly moved from words to actions. The infamous flagrant foul by Chennedy Carter, a blatant shoulder check away from the ball, became a national symbol of the league's hostile environment. "That's just not a basketball play," Clark said after being knocked to the ground. It wasn't a hard foul in the heat of the moment. It was a message. This collection of incidents painted a disturbing picture. Instead of rolling out the red carpet for the star, bringing them unprecedented wealth, the league's old guard seemed intent on hazing her, driven by a deep-seated resentment of her instant stardom.
Sense about things that Caitlyn was doing wrong when, in my personal opinion, she was doing nothing but going out there and playing great basketball every night and ignoring the hate that was coming to her from all sides, not only.
This is the simmering tension that finally boiled over live on ESPN. The debate was about the WNBA playoffs, but the massive, undeniable elephant in the room was that Caitlin Clark was no longer in them. Stephen A. Smith did what he has paid millions to do. He pointed to the cold, hard facts. He laid out the stark reality that with Clark eliminated, viewership hadn't just dipped, it had completely collapsed. The numbers were catastrophic. The first weekend without the rookie phenom saw viewership plummet by nearly 70%. But for Sue Bird, this factual observation was an act of betrayal. Her frustration was palpable as she fired back, accusing Smith of hating on the very product his network was supposed to be promoting. In a now infamous clip, she demanded to know why he was tearing down the league. She was, in essence, demanding that a powerful media figure abandon journalistic integrity in favor of positive PR. Bird's on-air demand to ignore reality wasn't just her personal opinion, it was a reflection of the WNBA's entire crisis strategy. Her outrage mirrored the front office's panic. When the bottom fell out of their viewership and ticket sales, the league went into full-blown crisis mode. Their worst nightmare was unfolding on national television. The league's most important games were facing the prospect of being played in embarrassingly empty arenas. So they devised a calculated and deceptive strategy to manufacture an illusion of success. How do we know? The ticket prices. For a WNBA Finals game, the league's premier event, tickets on resale markets were available for as little as $9. For a playoff game in Minnesota, they were being sold for $10. This wasn't a price drop. It was a desperate fire sale. The same league that had seen tickets for Clark's games command hundreds of dollars was now practically giving away seats to its championship series. It was a classic case of prioritizing optics over reality. They could fill the seats with anyone to make the arenas appear full for the cameras, while commentators spoke of the incredible atmosphere. But it was all a carefully constructed facade, hiding a devastating failure. But to truly understand the jealousy, you have to look at the one controversy nobody wants to talk about. Clark's arrival didn't just disrupt the league's competitive balance, it disrupted its cultural and social dynamics. For decades, the WNBA has been a league predominantly led by black athletes who have fought tirelessly for every bit of recognition they ever received. Then, in walks Caitlin Clark, a white player from Iowa, who achieved a level of fame and commercial success in a few short months that had eluded almost every other player for their entire careers. This created a complex and uncomfortable dynamic. Las Vegas Aces superstar Aja Wilson put it plainly. "I think a lot of people may say it's not about black and white, but to me, it is," she said. "You can be top-notch at what you are as a black woman, but they don't see it as marketable." The issue wasn't Clark herself, but what her instantaneous elevation represented to players who had long felt overlooked and undervalued. The conflict wasn't just about professional jealousy, it was tangled up in complex issues of race, representation, and the persistent struggle for equitable recognition. Clark became an unfair target for years of pent-up frustration. And this brings the entire sordid saga back to Sue Bird and the shocking hypocrisy at the heart of her actions. Why the sudden, aggressive change of heart? Why the public attack on a media personality for simply stating a fact she herself once implicitly acknowledged? A critical analysis suggests a deep-seated insecurity. It's a defensive reaction from a member of the old guard, watching the league they painstakingly built become completely and utterly dependent on a 22-year-old rookie. By attacking the narrative of decline, Bird wasn't just defending the league, she was defending her own legacy and the value of the era she represents. It was a desperate attempt to reclaim control, to insist that the house she helped build is strong on its own, even as all the evidence screamed otherwise. And Stephen A. Smith saw it for exactly what it was.
Talk about it. I've seen Shannon Sharp talk about it. And that's what I just don't understand is they work for ESPN. So why are you hating on a product that ESPN
that they invest in?
Yeah, that's where these viewership numbers are coming. Yeah, it's a business you're in. It's not that they can't. And by the way, it's not that they can't be critical of certain things. They can have their opinions. But that's where I don't understand.
To talk about the attendance and says, like, basically that Caitlin had the highest attendance in the playoffs, which Caitlin Clark played her first 2 rounds in Connecticut, which only holds roughly 10,000, and they got swept, so they never made it back to Cambridge in Indiana to play a home game. So they absolutely did not have that.
And with Shannon, there's an aspect of them like defending their stances on her. Like, we were right about Caitlin, and this is our defense. And I still think there's something twisted there because nobody ever said that Caitlin wasn't going to be a marketing gem.
In the end, Sue Bird's attack on the truth did nothing to change reality. It only exposed her own motives. Her jealousy, and the jealousy of the old guard, created the ultimate paradox. Caitlin Clark handed the WNBA the mainstream relevance it had been chasing for 25 years. But that blindingly bright spotlight also illuminated the league's darkest corners, exposing deep-seated insecurities and professional jealousies that had been festering just beneath the surface. The conflict is no longer about basketball, it's about the soul of the league itself. It's a battle between protecting a legacy and embracing a revolution. This leaves the WNBA at a monumental crossroads. The league and its veterans were given the greatest gift the sport has ever received, but with legends like Sue Bird leading the charge to deny reality, the question we have to ask is, will they sabotage their own future out of spite? Her on-air attack was just the beginning. The cover-up of ticket prices and viewership numbers is just the first layer of the story. The real question is, what else are they hiding?